whatever it is for you. So, video is gonna kind of go into some Faraday box myths and truths. So for quite a few years now, I have been researching the hell out of Faraday boxes, any kind of studies I could find on the internet, testing, whether it be independent or governmental. And basically what I found out is everybody seems to think that you can put a radio or a cell phone in some kind of metal can, and if it blocks the signal, radio just has, static coming out, no signal on your cell phone, blah, 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 that your device, your things are protected. Couldn't be farther from the truth. Both nuclear driven EMPs and a solar EMP, and I know the terminology is wrong on some of these, so don't give me no shit about it. I'm keeping it basic and simple for everybody. There's common terms we all understand, we know what we mean. So don't go all grammar Nazi on me. Anyway, both styles of solar flares out there work on a much, much, much higher frequency range than a cell phone or an AM/FM radio. And because of that higher frequency range, you're talking about a much higher powered EMP. More voltage means you need a thicker, heavier gauge material on the outside of the box. And to absorb and then I shouldn't say absorb, to catch that pulse, that energy wave, and then transfer it to somewhere else, whether it be through a good solid heavy gauge cable, going to a earth ground rod, something along that line. I see people using trash cans, and they'll use aluminum foil tape to wrap around the outside. They'll put fiberboard insulation inside the cage, put the aluminum side of that insulation out, facing out of the trash can. They'll use that as their cage. Okay, fine. You do not have a consistent, solid, positive connection between that trash can lid and the body of the trash can. You just don't. The simple fact is, yeah, they fit tight, but there's gaps and blah, blah, blah. And, 0.02 mil piece of foil wrapped around the tape, or around the top. Come on now, get real. Do you really think that's going to absorb enough of the energy and then transfer it to wherever? And this crap about the cages being not needing to be grounded, wrong. when you're talking about, basically, EMP is about the equivalent of a static electricity charge. It's a high power radio frequency, basically going through the air, hits a object, and that object, through the laws of physics, metals, they're going to absorb that energy, and it's too much energy, it's going to fry whatever's inside that. So they've got to be grounded. That skin on the outside, whatever it's made of, needs to be able to transfer that energy out. Now, a lot of the research I've done, talked to several engineers of various different types that I know. Whatever's inside the box, you need to insulate them from that energy floating around in that skin until it either dissipates, transfers out through a ground cable, whatever. Foam insulation that's got aluminum on the one side isn't going to do it. You've got gaps in it, and that insulation is not a type of insulation that isolates electricity. If it did, they'd wrap wires with it, stuff like that. It's a heat and a temperature insulator, not a electricity insulator, for lack of better terms. I don't know how else to put it. So anyway, the U.S. government did do 2 studies. One was massive. Another one was kind of, medium sized. Come to find out, the best possible material to insulate something from a magnetic pulse, whether it be solar or nuclear, is wood. Wow. You know how they say that the cure for everything is already here on Earth? Mother Nature made all these diseases and all these problems, all this stuff, and she also made everything to counteract it. We just gotta have the intelligence, the common sense, the drive, and the luck to find that stuff. So anyway, the federal government took a really powerful man-made EMP, kind of like from a Tesla coil type thing, and put a commercial airliner on top of a giant wooden platform, elevated, I don't know, it's like 20 feet off the ground, judging from the picture. No metal, fasteners, connectors, nothing. No metal anywhere within the wood. Everything was done, old school. Your joints are, tongue and groove, dovetail, whatever kind of joints they used, and used wooden pegs, epoxy glue, Anyway, they set this, I believe it was 727, on top of this wooden platform. Hit it with EMPs exponentially going up in power to see what the breaking point was that it would start messing with the electronics in the planes. They couldn't produce a signal big enough, strong enough, powerful enough. The plane was fine. And they did a study on cars. Come to find out, most modern cars, with the exceptions of your really cheap, Korean made, blah, 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 which by now, they're not cheaply made. I mean, we buy them cheaper than an American made car, but they're actually pretty high quality vehicles now. Cars in the 80s, 90s, up until like the early 2000s, because this study was done, and if I can remember right, like 2003, 2004. They did cars, trucks, SUVs. Most of the vehicles did not have any catastrophic failure, other than sorry about the wobble on the video. Anyway, your really cheap made cars. A couple of them had catastrophic failure. For the most part, it was problems like, windshield wipers would come on, horn would start honking, engine might sputter a little bit or shut off. But on every single one of them, except for one Ford truck, it was an F-150, and it was a utility truck. For whatever reason, it had some problems, and the computer had to be replaced. Everything else, pretty much, you shut the ignition off, turn your key back to the off position, wait a couple seconds, restart the vehicle, everything went back to normal, and on down the road you went. So the shit of you have to have a pre-1976 car, no. You want to really protect your car and be prepared for an EMP. Depends on what direction your car is facing in relation to where the EMP is coming from, the location of the electronics in it. But, if your battery is disconnected, your battery's not going to fry unless it's already on its last leg anyway. Let's see, you have an alternator, a starter. You have an externally regulated alternator, like on the older vehicles. Have you a spare regulator? Let's see here. Most of your ignition system should be fine. The ignition coil is made to absorb and build high levels of electricity. We're talking 40, 60, 80, 120,000 volts. You don't got to worry about the ignition coil. Have you a spare computer? But make sure your computer, because there's calibration codes on the ECM, make sure those codes are compatible or match. You can't just take an ECM from like a 92 F-150 with a 302, a 5-liter V8, and put it in a 94. Not going to work. It's going to run like shit if it starts at all. So, make sure you got one that matches the calibration code yours came out with factory. So, and then taking on the frame or the subframe if you have a unibody, clean you a spot really good. Maybe put you some weld through primer on that spot so it won't rust, and bolt you in a stud, you know, a bolt, 2 lock washers, and a lock nut. Bolt it through. Use you a really good pair of heavy gauge jumper cables, a solid copper ground wire, what a lot of your cable services use, or like what is run from your fuse or breaker box in your house to either the outside earth ground rod, or run from the box to like your plumbing if you have copper or galvanized plumbing in your house. Anyway, I like the jumper cable idea because you can just, you know, clamp it onto that bolt, stick you a earth ground rod down into the ground next to your driveway, your parking spot, whatever. Hook the other end of the cable up to that. Boom, that gives you an outlet for that pulse to travel through the body, into the frame, into that stud, through the cable, into the earth. You do that, you should not have a single problem with your car unless that EMP was really close to you. Alright, now on the Faraday boxes. Stay away from the wire mesh, the garbage can solution. You know, I see people go out and spend the money on the copper boxes, you know, sheet copper, and they'll make a wooden frame and bolt it all together, make a real complicated one, blah, blah, blah. The copper box idea is great as long as you ground it to earth and you have at least a 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of a non-conductive isolating insulation in there. You want an RFI blocking insulation in there. And then run it to earth ground. So we're talking, you know, like 1/2, 3/4 of an inch of a good silicone rubber, something like that. But your best, absolute best option goes back to that little study of the plane on the wooden platform. Go buy you a few 2x4s, cut them down to the size you want, get you some bar clamps and some wood glue or some epoxy wood glue. Glue the things up, clamp them together, make it your 4 sides. Once it dries, then you can take and glue your 4 sides and your bottom together. And if you want, you know, drill you a hole, get you some long wood dowel rod, and glue that in to kind of give you some extra strength and you know, hold all that together. And then, you know, it's not hard to take some, you know, like some 1x4s and you know, cut you like 2 notches out of one, 3 notches out of the other, so you have kind of like some little dog ears. Put them together, drill a hole straight through the whole thing, put you a dowel rod in there. Guess I'm not turning there. Anyway, put you a dowel rod in there, and then, you know, glue that to the box. There you have a hinged lid. Make sure it all fits really nice and tight. And put the 2x4s so that the wide face is what you glue together. So you have that 4-inch thickness of the wood that is going to insulate everything inside of it. That, according to the studies and testing and stuff that I found, is your absolute very best, highest quality Faraday box. I guess that's, you know, pretty much, you know, all I got to say on it. Hopefully here pretty soon I can get the time. I got the material. I just need to get the time to sit down and you know, make a box for myself. When I do that, I will, damn railroad tracks, I'll what do you call it, record it and you know, post it. Anyway, pulling up to my delivery spot here, so y'all have a good day, and you know, feel free to message me on here and ask any questions or anything. You know, I'll do my best to answer. So anyway, have a good one, everyone. Bye.